sad and unfortunate that one has to come to JNU surrounded with security men and I believe police guys, which is not really how one remembers this campus. But anyways, I think things change, but they never remain the same, which is also the plus point of being here. So I hope there are other people recording what we are saying and not just the security. I want to, I'll start, I think I'll take the clock back to 2008. And in 2008, Omar Abdullah, as you all know, he fought the election. And this had come out of, Kashmir had come out of a decade of insurgency, militancy, enforced disappearances, crackdown, rape, deaths, and there was an entire generation that was born and brought up in conflict that had only a memory that was not really a direct memory, but a memory that was transferred to the young people by their parents, their grandparents, of strife, of conflict, of death. Most homes were touched with this. So in 2008, this generation was coming of age. Many first-time voters wanted to move out of the baggage and of deep distress which they sensed in their growing years. And when Omar Abdullah came in and offered that, there was a level of enthusiasm amongst a large section of the youth. I covered that election. In fact, we traveled with Omar Abdullah and with the other candidates. And you saw that slowly from skepticism, there was a certain kind of enthusiasm which you saw. And young people came out believing that this new man would give them that new window of opportunity whereby they would be able to do their businesses, study, and pursue a lot of what young people want to pursue. It's not simplistic. What I'm trying to say is, please do, as young people, I think you'll be able to understand the nuances behind those aspirations. And after that, unfortunately, for 2 years, the Chief Minister was apathetic, indifferent, doing other things than governing, and a certain disillusionment was setting in. But 2010, as all of you know, I'm not going to go into details, but one after the other, young people were killed. After the first boy who was spent in a police bullet, there were 126 in those few months who died. The anger, the protest, the desperation reached new levels. And suddenly, this generation that was trying to shed that baggage realized that what was being told to them and what they had grown up with had elements of truth which they could not no longer deny. So that was the first major disillusionment that set in, anger that set in. Before 2010, I also have to say that there was a certain, because there was dialogue at various levels, there was a certain shedding of, there was no pro-Pakistan per se, particularly after 2010. There was no pro-India, of course. There was a pro-freedom aspiration, but at the same time, it was a window of opportunity which New Delhi, if it had used and if Omar Abdullah had delivered, could have changed the face of Kashmir as we got to know it after 2010 and as we are seeing now. None of that happened. No opportunity was used by New Delhi under the Congress government. No opportunity was used by the National Conference, which was in power along with the Congress. And the same cycle of repression, not really understanding Kashmir, pushing Kashmir away as almost an enemy state. The only difference that one saw in that period and before was that certain political parties, particularly the left, which had never been able to handle Kashmir in its entire, approach to border states. Kashmir was always something where the left itself did not know whether this is a nationalist issue, whether it should be seen as a pro-military issue, and there was always this confusion that one sensed even in the organized left. That there was a change, and there was a rethink, and there was an understanding, at least the beginnings, the glimmerings of an understanding as journalists which we recorded, was that the left was changing its approach on Kashmir, was questioning the Armed Forces Special Powers Act, other regional parties also joining in. And after 2010, when so many of the boys were killed, there was a huge meeting organized by 14, and this was unprecedented. In all the years that I have covered Kashmir, we never saw this. 14 political parties held a huge meeting at the Constitution Club outside of the grounds to condemn the militarization, to demand the demilitarization of Kashmir and to demand the revocation of ASFA. The entire media was there. All the big channels were there, all the senior reporters were there. It was fully covered because I think the working journalists realized that this was an unprecedented situation. Not a line appeared that night and the next morning in any of the media channels because of a phone call by Mr. Chidambaram, who was then controlling the media like Arun Jaitley is today. And the entire meeting was blacked out, and so it never really came to be known that 14 political parties had demanded this at that particular point in time. We moved, so it has been continuous deterioration, it's been going down continuously. And this, but what has happened now is completely changed, it's a sea change in Kashmir. It's not something which is where you can say 2010 has got progressively worse. In fact, it has changed. Everything is very different. For one, the militants which have been the excuse for all the action have been replaced by the masses. Now, if it is a case that all the masses are terrorists, is another case altogether which I'll come back to later. But it's the young people, the anger, the alienation, the desperation that is visible in the kind of protests we have been seeing over the last 2 years in Kashmir Valley. There have been protests almost every day. There have been crowds coming out every second day. We've been writing about it, people have been warning the governments about it, but obviously there has been no response at all. And why did this happen? It started with first the elections, where the PDP and the BJP both cater to their respective constituencies by promising the other that they will not ally with each other. So in South Kashmir, where there is tremendous violence now, including in Mehbooba Mufti's own home town, you found that the people came out in large numbers to vote to keep the BJP out of the valley. There was always one strand of opinion at that time which felt that there was nothing seriously wrong with the BJP, also inside Kashmir. And that was evident in the kind of people who set up the BJP unit in the valley, plus others who supported that point of view, thinking that the BJP is going to be kosher, it will be another Vajpayee regime, where they will talk to Pakistan, where they will be able to bring out solutions. You know, that old school of thought in Pakistan and in India, where they said in Pakistan that the BJP here can deliver, and there were many in our strategic establishment who felt that the military in Pakistan could deliver. Our position has always been that the military and the BJP always have a limit. Any right-wing force has a limit. It cannot cross that limit because it has a constituency that it has nurtured on the basis of this divisiveness, which is represented in its approach towards Kashmir. So as this became very true, you had in 2 years, what have you had? You had constant needling of the people in Kashmir. You had senior ministers and others talk of Article 370 over and over again. You had this whole climate of fear being created by the proposal of starting these segregated colonies. First it was for the Kashmiri Pandits. Kashmiri Pandits living inside the valley issued a statement after statement saying that they do not want to be ghettoized, they do not want these kind of colonies. But nobody in the media reported that in New Delhi. outside Kashmir. Those who were studying in different universities were beaten. But I think that the violence against the Kashmiri boys increased over the last 2 years. So there was this desperation, there was this back to the wall kind of feeling amongst the young. They felt that they were being cornered. There were no talks, there was no dialogue, there was no reaching out, there was no talking to anybody. And there was this fear and this feeling that they're of complete isolation. So it's against that backdrop that we are moving into what we are seeing today. And when these protests, now Burhan Wani, I know that he's a controversial character. He's a person who at one time we thought, and I think there were many in Kashmir who I spoke to, who felt he was an intelligence creation. Whether it was Indian intelligence or Pakistan intelligence is something that has to be worked out, but there was a feeling among sections that he was an intelligence creation, and that because this came from the question that if a man is so active on the social media and lives inside Kashmir, how is it that this government, with its intelligence agencies, its military intelligence, 3 intelligence guys to 1 Kashmiri, was not able to find him when they should? And why the action now? And of course in Kashmir, the questioning and the question marks raised over him disappeared the moment he was killed. Because then, as any of you, and I'm sure many of you are conversant with the politics and the aspirations of the valley, where the narrative changed immediately. And the narrative changed to embrace this boy who was not such a big hero as is being made out now in life as he has become in death. And after that, you know, I mean, it has been covered extensively of the kind of protests that have taken place. These are mass protests. There are hundreds and thousands who are walking distances to go for funerals. There are hundreds and thousands who are attacking the police and the CRPF. 10 days Kashmir has been under curfew. There's been a complete clampdown of internet, mobile, etc. services. They've had to raid the major newspapers and clamp down on the newspapers, seize the copies, stop the printing presses. That only happens, and that's again something that we've seen all over in the Northeast here, and probably my seniors during the emergency. That happens when governments become increasingly insecure. They're not really sure of whether they're going to be able to control the situation, and then they bring in the kind of repression that only governments can, to make sure that they keep a lid on all the anger inside. It is taken off. It's not going to be covered with the pressure cooker valve. It's something it's moving at a very rapid space. And why it will not be understood, handled, or why it will not stop is because of the refusal to understand the reasons for why we are witnessing what we are witnessing today in Kashmir. And when you don't understand the reasons, or you don't want to acknowledge the reasons, and you handle something in a manner where you paint a picture which is different from the real picture, and then you address that picture, then the real picture tends to burst. And that really is what happened. I think today in Parliament, there was a debate in Kashmir, on Kashmir, and you actually saw 2 very clear-cut narratives emerge in the Rajya Sabha. You had one narrative of the government, I think best articulated by the Finance Minister Arun Jaitley, and then you had the second narrative articulated by all the political parties, the non-BJP political parties, including the left, the Congress, and the regional parties. And what was the narrative? I mean, the narrative itself shows the kind of polarization that Kashmir is being used to effect in society outside Kashmir. And unfortunately, before I go to that, I just have to say that the role that the television channels have been playing in completely dividing and polarizing society, with the kind of prime time debates, I mean, in any other, if there was law of ethics, and if we were not so scared of governments intervening that law of ethics against actually the people who are following ethics. This is something which is absolutely goes against all levels of responsibility. Or the kind of people who are being dragged out to speak, the same Maulanas and the RSS guys, the kind of fights that are being engineered, the kind of picture that has been created, when everybody knows. I mean, now, what is the narrative? Let me go back to the political narrative that emerged. And I just made a few points. The points from the government were that Pakistan has never accepted Kashmir as part of India, which we all know. Pakistan has waged 3 wars against India, but when it saw that conventional war would not bring it to victory, it brought in terrorism. Again, accepted. Now there is a new kind of terrorism, said the government, which is obviously a reference to Wani, without naming him, where terrorists are turned into cyber heroes on the social media. But here the responsibility should rest with everybody who allowed this to happen, if it did happen. I still have a question mark on that. And when the police doing its duty kills them in an encounter, there is opposition. And so what is the police expected to do when masses attack the police stations, where stones become lethal weapons, where they attack the CRP units? What they didn't say is that obviously the police then is instructed, or the so-called security forces, which by the way in Kashmir nobody calls security forces anymore, because security means that we bring security to the people. Here you're taking security away from the people. So in a very conscious effort, we also, when we write in the Citizen or anywhere else, we also don't refer to them as security forces until the security forces actually bring in security for the people that they are there to protect. And so, so obviously, firing in the face, firing above the waist, which is against all standard operating procedures, is then justified. Then the government says, do not delude yourselves, this violence was in support of the terrorist. Not for all the reasons that the opposition has been giving, that because it was, all the other things that I just told you. Our fight is against the terrorists, and if the people of Kashmir stand with us, then it's fine. If they don't, then they will be tackled by the security. Battle in Jammu and Kashmir is between country and the separatists. We should all speak in one voice and ensure that the Kashmiri youth stay away from this agitation so that the security forces do not need to take action against them. Then comes the other point of view, which I don't know. The problem with the opposition in this country is that it stays inside Parliament and has not yet been able to formulate a plan which takes its point of view outside of the streets. So I do not know, whereas on the other side, the BJP and its affiliates are able to turn the argument into a street argument and take it to all sections of the people, with the media of course helping them. But for once at least, the opposition did say a few things which I want to say. So this is the second narrative that emerged from Rajya Sabha today. If you view the situation as a war, you will not solve the problem. Linking every problem with Pakistan is not the solution. You have diplomacy to deal with Pakistan. And as Sitaram Yechuri then said, as far as diplomacy is concerned, you get off a plane many times to have biryani with the Pakistani media. There must be a conspiracy being hatched by Pakistan, but you have to look at the measures you are taking to counter it. The people of Kashmir don't need more security personnel, they need more doctors. And then of course they all made the point about the way in which young people were killed, how women were attacked, how the youth were hit with pellets straight on their faces, how 100 people have been blinded in Kashmir, how 1,800 people are lying injured, how 42, 44 people have been killed, most of them young people. And also the opposition pointed out that your own state cabinet, after its first meeting, spoke of the disproportionate use of force. So what are you people doing? The discussion or the suggestions that came out from the opposition was have a meeting, all-party meeting, and then decide and lay down some guidelines, take some action, etc. So there are two narratives. And you have the Chief Minister of Jammu and Kashmir, who was not represented here, who should take a position between the two narratives. Which one is the narrative that she supports? Because it's very clear that the government has made its point of view clear, the opposition today has made its point of view clear. She is still with the BJP, she still supports the BJP, she is the Chief Minister. So obviously, then the position is that most Kashmiris are fighting for Pakistan, they are pro-Pakistan, they are supporting terrorists trained by Pakistan, and everything that we are seeing happen in Kashmir has been pushed by the Pakistanis. So I think we are now moving into a very strong people versus state position. There has been a turning point, and that point literally has turned. And I don't see Kashmir coming back to that same line and the same approach and the enthusiasm and the excitement and the aspirations that were so visible there till even 2008, 2010, even before the fire. Even after 2010, 2011. This is a very extremely desperate situation. I do not think that any government in the world, let alone ours, can clamp down on a zone and treat it as territory in today's aged world. I don't think that's going to be possible. How long they can control it with these kind of measures is something that the government and the people have to know as time goes on. But it's unfolding in a manner where you see the narrative meshing into the narrative in the rest of India of the Muslim, the Pakistani, the terrorist. Kashmir was already feeding into that in this agenda, and now it has been brought and actually squarely placed there. But watch it, otherwise you'll be like that, you'll be blinded. That's a huge threat, and that's a very deliberate threat being given out by the state. You can't support that. Nobody can support it in democratic India. And in India, when you're talking of pluralism, you're talking of the same people who call Jammu and Kashmir an integral part of India go out of the way to make sure it doesn't feel integral. You treat them differently. You have two different laws for the people of Kashmir, for the people of Jammu, for the people of Leh, for the people of Haryana, for the people of Bihar. You tell me, if you use pellet guns on you guys here right now, what would happen in Delhi? There you are, and there you used it brutally this time. It was brought in by the Congress, I agree with you completely. It was brought in by the National Conference. It was used in 2010. But that's what the whole problem is. You don't check it in the beginning, things get worse and worse and worse. It wasn't checked, everybody raised a voice, nobody gave a damn. So another government comes in and instead of one shot, fires a machine gun. And look at the amount of kids. And now we are told in Parliament that, watch out, if you don't say that you are not with Pakistan, don't join, because this agitation is being instigated by Pakistan. And you don't join it, or you will get the same kind of treatment. But these are not threats you give out to your people. This is your own people, this is your country. Regardless of what the aspirations of the Kashmiris are, I would say that if we are saying it's integral, and if we are saying it's the Constitution of India, and if we are saying that they have to be part of us, then you have to win over. It is a democratic responsibility of any government in Delhi or in Srinagar to win over the hearts and minds and not shoot the youth. And young people have so many aspirations. I mean, when we were young, we were doing mad things. That doesn't mean you meant it. That doesn't mean you're going to do it all your life. You can be easily cajoled and rotten, but nobody has made that effort. I mean, not just covered it, but we've actually tried to bridge gaps and taken people and everything. I think there is one way out, and if everybody follows that, then that way out is going to give you your own answers. Is stop looking upon Kashmir through the prism of Azadiwalas or pro-Pakistan walas or anti-India walas. Look at Kashmir as a state which needs a lot of handling. treated with the sensitivity of a border state. You can never get away from that. It is a border state. It needs sensitive handling. There has to be an Indian border policy, which unfortunately we don't have. We haven't, no government has got a border policy to deal with the Northeast or to deal with Kashmir. We try to deal with them from extreme positions. Either everything is fine and you're trying to embrace them, which we are doing currently with the Northeast, or you're trying to push them apart. And so people there become schizophrenic in their own responses because the state is schizophrenic in handling the policy. So first we have to have a border policy, but I think as the progressive forces, we will stand for the democratic rights of the people of Kashmir, address the people of Kashmir. You know, there was a period where the entire separatist leadership, which now New Delhi is saying that the Kashmiris are supporting, was completely marginalized. The Kashmiris had no respect for them because they saw them as people who were bought over by the intelligence of both the countries. And it was only after 2010, because they were looking, nobody in Delhi wanted to believe that the first stone pelters had nothing to do with terrorism. I went and I profiled those stone pelters in Kashmir in 2010. They were boys and girls like you and me, and like you. But you know, they were young, they were happening, they were professionals, they were teachers, they were entrepreneurs who picked up the stone to, it was like, we wrote at that time, it was a cry for help, which was not heard in India. And the minute you said that they are terrorists, and said Gilani came out with a calendar of protests, because then they were looking for leaders, because they were being caught under PSA and taken into jail, hundreds of them at that time. And they were looking for a leader sort of emerged. He was the first out of all the Hurriyat to give a calendar, and from then on they embraced him again, after rejecting him. And I remember we took an interview, and you know, we've got enough proof of what I'm saying. I took an interview of him in which he was a pro-Pakistan. Gilani Singh's always been sort of pro-Pakistan, and he gave a pro-Pakistan interview. And hundreds of young Kashmiris started responding saying, hey, you know, why are you saying pro-Pakistan? Because the feeling was so anti-Pakistan that they were willing to question the leader that they had accepted again. But these are the nuances which nobody wants to pick up, nobody wants to share. The media has made it a black them and us, has pushed the Kashmiris into the Pakistan camp, where so what do you do as a young person? If I come here and I say that all of you are Maoist supporters, at the end of it and keep saying it, soon graffiti will start appearing here, hey, we are Maoists. You know, there is a push and a pushback. And the state is very, very mindful. It's extremely powerful. All of us who have covered the state from very close quarters in violence in Assam, in Kashmir, in Punjab, Operation Blue Star, everything. It's a very, very powerful entity. And the state can change the discourse completely if it has the political will. So I think the way to do it for progressive forces, which is not in government, is to talk about the democratic rights and freedoms of a people. And don't get into whether they want Azadi, they don't want Azadi. Your